So you're deciding between a classic Leica M6 and the modern MP. Maybe you've got an M6 now and you're thinking of upgrading, or maybe you're just curious. What are the differences between them? Is the MP really better? Does the brass top actually make a difference? And what about the film advance, the viewfinder, the rangefinder patch? Well, in this video, we're going to go over all of that and more. You see, as my main cameras, I've been using the M6 and the MP for over 7 years now. And having used them a lot, today I'll be going over every little difference between them. I'll share with you all my practical, experiential takeaways as well. And at the end, I'll leave you with the one reason why after many rolls of film, I eventually decided to go with the Leica MP. Let's jump right in. All the pictures that you're about to see were developed with Ilfotec HC at 20 degrees Celsius on a rotary processor. If you've seen one of my videos before, I personally really value your time as the viewer. So in making these videos, I try my best to be mindful of that. I always do my best to cut to the chase and focus on the things that I personally think is really worth your time. And because of that, for most of my videos, I mostly gloss over the nitty-gritty details. Well, today we're going to be doing something slightly different. We're going to dive right into the deep end of all the intricacies and the nuances between these two cameras. Because truth be told, the M6 and the MP, they're really largely similar, and to deeply compare them, it would be like splitting hairs. But that's exactly what we're going to do today. Things are about to get geeky, and if you're not interested in going into the weeds, you might want to switch videos right about now. Still with me? Alright then, let's go. So what are the differences between them? Well, first off, price. As I'm making this video, a Leica M6 Classic goes for around $3,000 while a used MP goes for slightly over $4,000. So as of now, the MP is about $1,000 more. But that said, the M6 Classic has been steadily going up in price for quite a while now. When I first bought mine, it was $1,200, so you want to keep that in mind as well. A production camera would likely never exceed its retail price unless it's discontinued. And so from a long-term financial investment perspective, the Leica Classic M6 is probably the one to go for. Besides price, one big difference is their cosmetic finish. Except for a few limited edition pieces, the Leica M6 comes in a matte black chrome finish, while the MP comes in black paint. This might seem superficial, but in my opinion, it's still worth considering. The glossy black paint would generally wear in and age really nicely as you use it. And so if you're looking to use a camera for 50 years and have it look its age, you'd probably want the MP. That said, the black paint does physically feel stickier, and it's more prone to fingerprints as well. The black chrome feels smoother, it's less likely to look gummy, so if you don't like the look of fingerprints, you'd probably want the black chrome. When it comes to what's under the paint, a regular classic M6 has a zinc top plate, while the MP has a brass one. And this is a big difference because some Leica M6s with the zinc top plate are known to bubble. Now I say some because I've met collectors who go around giving advice to never ever get a classic M6 because they think the zinc will always bubble. So they say if you buy a M6, always expect it to happen sometime in the future. I don't think that's true. I've seen many classic M6s still around today without any bubbling, so as long as you're not storing them in super humid conditions, I think you'll be fine. That said, bubbling is a thing, and in general, once some of it has happened, it's likely to spread. So if you care about that kind of thing, always try to get an M6 without any bubbles. Another thing about zinc versus brass is its ability to be repainted. If you have in mind the idea of, say, in 40 years time, I want to get this camera fully overhauled, all the paint stripped off and then repainted so that it looks completely different, then you'd probably want brass over zinc. Now, is there a difference in terms of physical feel between brass and zinc in the hands? Well, yes. A brass-topped Leica feels slightly more dense. It has a bit more heft to it. A zinc Leica M6 feels slightly more top hollow. It's not a huge difference. I'd say if the brass top plate felt like 9/10 in terms of density, a zinc top plate would be 8.5, 8.7. Not a huge deal, but there is a difference. Now, what about the film advance? Is there a difference? Well, actually, Yes. Now a big difference in that feel is due to the levers they use. The M6 uses a lever with a plastic tip, while the MP uses a solid metal film advance lever. Both feel nice, but they do feel different. If you're not a fan of the plastic tip on the M6, it's actually really easy to swap out that plastic tipped lever for a metal one, and I'll be putting up a short video on that soon, so subscribe and stay tuned. But even if you did put a metal lever on an M6, there is still a subtle difference between them. I've actually noticed differences between early serial number M6s and late serial number M6s, and early serial number MPs and late serial number MPs. What in the world, right? I know it's really strange, but let me quickly run you through them. The best feeling film advances that I've ever felt on a Leica, for me personally, would be an overhauled early M2 or M3. Those have a shorter asymmetrical throw, and they ramp up in tension, then glide past a certain point, then they lock into place really nicely. Early M6s also do a similar thing, and to me, those are amongst the nicest feeling cameras. Then somewhere along the way, later serial number M6s and the M6 TTLs began feeling slightly different. This might sound crazy, but you can actually see those differences with your eyes. Right now I have two Leica MPs. My black paint one has an early serial number and my chrome one has a later serial number. With the early serial number black paint MP, you'll see that at the end of the range of motion of the film advance lever, the film advance doesn't cover the triangle, while with the later serial number chrome MP, it actually covers the triangle on the frame counter. So you can actually visibly see that it has less of a range of motion. And that difference does translate to how it feels in the hands. They do feel physically different. Neither better or worse, but for me, I personally prefer the feeling of an early serial number M6 or a late serial number MP. But all that said, this is really a small detail, and for 95% of people out there, this difference might be so insignificant and they might not care. But if it sounds like it matters to you, be sure to test it out in person first, and keep in mind to always get the nicest feeling film advance that you're able to get your hands on. Don't think that, oh, I'll get it serviced and it will feel good later, because chances are, unless you pay top dollar for a super deep overhaul with sandblasting and refiling of the gears, in general, a regular service might not do much. Now moving on to the most practical difference between them. Is the viewfinder and the rangefinder patch in the MP that much better? Well, yes. The viewfinder between the MP and the M6 is kind of like getting a better chair. Say you've always used an okay work chair. You've gotten used to it, it does the job, and you don't even think about upgrading, right? Because it's just fine. Until one day, you actually do sit in a much better chair and you realize how much you've been missing out on. And that's like the viewfinder between the M6 and the MP. For my first 5 to 6 years of using a Leica, I used the M6, and I never owned or even tried an MP, so I just never knew the difference, right? The M6 was always usable, and if you own one too, you'll know what I mean. For most things, it's just good, it's really good. But here and there were some situations where you just can't see anything in the rangefinder patch. When that happened to me, I usually just focused somewhere else, right? Something about the same distance away, and I just made do. I still got the picture. But when I switched to the MP, man, what a difference. I've recreated some specific lighting situations to show you what that difference looks like. In general, I call the viewfinder in the M6 completely usable. Definitely better than an average camera, and in most situations, it just works. But here and there, it does get in the way, and the MP is much more consistent. And having switched to the MP for a few years now, I can comfortably say that I have far less issues with not being able to focus. So it's definitely significantly practically better. But that said, you can send in your M6 to certain places to do a viewfinder upgrade, so you don't really need to buy a whole new camera to fix this problem. But if you are deciding between them, this is something to take note of. So those are the main differences between them. It might sound like we're splitting hairs, and practically speaking, we are. But so why then did I sell my M6s to get a pair of MPs? Well, keep in mind that these are just my personal thoughts, and it's not meant to be advice, and it's not going to fit everyone. But if you're interested in my reasons, I'll share them with you. To me, the answer is longevity. You see, the M6 is an amazing camera and it's really popular. There were many copies made, so chances are you'll never run out of parts and you'll probably be able to get it serviced way into the future. But most M6s were made in the mid-80s, the early 90s. So when you're getting a classic M6, you're getting a camera that is 20 to 30 to maybe 40 years old. Now you may be able to source one from a collector who doesn't really shoot much, and it might be in great shape, but you never really know how much use that camera has seen. Now a 20 to 30 year old camera isn't really that old, and I regularly use cameras that are much older. But for me personally, I'm also at a place in my photography where I want a camera that is going to have the highest chance of lasting me till I'm this age. Now this might sound exaggerated or overly romantic, but hear me out. I've been into photography since I was 15 years old, and it's not something that I was in and out of, but the moment I got my first real camera, a Canon 400D, photography has been a consistent, significant part of my life. I've journeyed widely and deeply. It's my work, it's my play, it's my job, it's my way to escape, and I've been in it long enough to know that I'm not just on some new gear high or some film fad. It's not a phase, it's not a fling, but my relationship with this medium has grown to a point where I can say that I'm deeply in love with it. Now, like any relationship where love is involved, there are ups and downs. Sometimes I don't feel anything, sometimes I feel everything, and I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't predict anything with certainty, but I do genuinely hope to be making pictures for the rest of my life. So when thinking about it from that long-term perspective, I personally want something that will wear in with me as my journey unfolds. Something that has the highest chance, the highest possibility of lasting the long haul. For my secondary cameras, say my medium format stuff, I'm really happy to use very old cameras. You guys know I love my Rolleiflexes, my Hasselblads, my Makinas, but they're my secondary cameras, and I might put 3 to 5 rolls through them per week, maybe every 2 weeks. But with my main cameras, I regularly put 3 to 5 rolls through them a day. And so for a camera that I'm going to use so much, I don't really want a camera that has already seen 60 years of use, because in 60 years time, the camera would have gone through 120 years. I want something that say has 5 years on it, so that when I put my 60 years in it, there'll be a higher chance of it still being by my side. So that's how I ended up with a pair of Leica MPs, in my opinion, as fully mechanical cameras, as picture-making machines in terms of usability, reliability, amongst the best that this world has to offer. Cameras that to me have the highest chance of still being by my side when all the hairs on my head turn grey. Thanks for staying to the end. Most people drop off halfway through, so you still being here really means a lot to me. It shows me that we were able to connect over such tiny details, like the nuances of the differences between different film advances. And the fact that we both find such a thing really interesting is just so precious to me. So thank you for joining me on this journey. Let me know any of your thoughts in the comment section, and I'll love to have a chat with you there. If you haven't yet, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.